Oh dear. It would appear that the camera go boom. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Apparently the camera decided to duplicate itself today. Weird. Alrighty. Hello everybody. Welcome back to the lab. How are we all doing today? I love that shirt. This is definitely one of the most essential developer t-shirts that I think anybody could ever really hope to achieve. That is the sleeping pushing unicorn sleeping on a crescent moon, because peak developer. Let's see here. Just gonna do a quick audio check just to make sure. Have kind of reoriented a lot of stuff on my desk, and you may or may not be able to tell. So I am shifted over just a tiny bit. The server rack is now kind of sitting off to my left. It is a little toasty in here. Hopefully it won't get too toasty, but of course I also say that with gotta bring some matcha into the stream. Let's see here, and I also recognize that I'm totally not prepared with the whiteboard. Let's see. Let's get over to the code, and let's get the code pulled up. Oh, that's right. This is updated. I will have to show that here in just a second. And actually, while I'm at it, scenes self. Oh, interesting. I'm looking at Stream Deck because I've been trying to use Stream Deck to swap between scenes, but for whatever reason, that is failing on me, because of course it would start to fail on me moments as the stream starts. All right. Oh, the lovely matcha bowl. Oh, let's see here. Get that like that. Oh. Do our requisite tiny plug for Jade Leaf Matcha Tea, the organic Japanese matcha that you need in your life in order to ensure that you write the most quality, the highest quality of code. All things that have been said are the opinions of me and only me, and they do not reflect or come from in any way, shape, or form Jade Leaf Matcha. These are my own opinions. Legalese, legalese, legalese. Jade Leaf, please don't sue me. I really just like your matcha. Somebody get this man a sponsor deal. Oh man, there was a friend of mine long time ago. This was like in the early days of YouTube. Like when it was actually curated by humans instead of the infamous algorithm. Oh, sorry. I've been told that I must enable T-Stream. And he had some grand plans for how he was going to start streaming, not streaming at the time, but just doing videos of what effectively was gameplay content. But the way that he was going to record it was particularly interesting. He was also wholly convinced that that Sony would see this and they would be so enamored by the attempt that they would sponsor him and they would send him a bunch of games to play on stream. Oh, hot water. I am sad to say that that reality never quite panned out. And now I actually don't remember the point of telling that story. But insert random segue into the purpose of this stream is to hang out with you guys. I can hear the voice in the back of my head like, smooth, Medj, real smooth. Dull, we got who we got in the chat right now? We got Dull, we got 715, Fiol, Shoryuken Pizza, I think I see in there. How are y'all doing tonight? I'm attempting to... Oh, hello. I've actually got some chat weirdness going on. I've got the trusty... Yep, there we go. I've got the trusty MacBook over here that's not being particularly trusty for Twitch chat tonight. So if I miss something, if I miss a message, I apologize. Feel free to repeat spam it. Assuming that I legitimately miss it. Hi, Horror! How you doing, mate? Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome back to the lab. We are just finishing up the requisite ceremony of creating the matcha tea that will enable us to write quality code. That back over there. And wow. Kinda okay-ish. I mean, sometimes that's the best that we can really hope for, all things considered. Life's gonna throw punches at you. You're either gonna take them, or you're gonna get knocked down. And you get up again. Then you get knocked down. Then you get up again. Then you get knocked down. And then you get up again. Am I doing the meme right? Probably not. And I am doing quite all right. I have been thinking quite a bit about where we currently sit and what we want to do next. But hence the reason that I wanted to pull out and chat before actually starting the stream. And just as kind of like call it a checkpoint, if you will. So we have, up to this point, created in Golang a Twitch client, or really an IRC client that is connecting to Twitch. We are receiving messages, private messages, most of the things that we're handling. We're also handling the ping pong, because you have to honor the ping pong. Remember, if you do not honor the ping pong, you will be yeeted out of the IRC. And do not yeet. Do not get yeeted, because it is painful. Like, you hit the ground and you just kind of do that tumble thing, like, and it's not a good time. I have no idea what you're doing, just staying for the Medj. Aw, thank you, mate. Most of the time, I don't know what I'm doing. That's half of the fun of it. Hey! Pong. But yes, so we have this application. It is connecting. We are reading chat. And additionally, we are parsing commands to a very basic extent, I would say. And then last stream, we deployed this thing. So we actually took this code, packaged it up, and deployed it out to a server just to show what that looked like. So for all intents and purposes, in terms of the software development lifecycle, we've covered a pretty decent chunk. Hi, Marvel. What am I drinking? Why, I am drinking the most invigorating matcha tea. Brought to you by Jade Leaf. Brought to you by Jade Leaf because I bought the matcha powder on Amazon. Details. Also, I love how I've got so Streamlabs on my monitor is actually showing me chat, but it doesn't render. It doesn't render certain emotes. So over here, I just got the text, and then I looked over at my MacBook, and I'm like, am I doing that right? Let's see here. It's kind of a I don't think that's right. Medj is not an emote machine. It's a BBTV. Oh, maybe. I don't know. As much software as I have written over the years, I still can't reliably say what software does most of the time. I can guess. But all right. So pulled out in chat a little bit earlier to see if there was any particular interest in specific parts of the software development lifecycle. And of course, with the requisite everything, there was a request from Dahl about the automated testing side of things, and I think I might be able to do something with that. But it I think they called it out proper that it would be a little light, but we can at least talk about it. Shoryuken, I'm here, but I'm buying oatmeal stuff. No worries, mate. Again, participation in the lab is not mandatory. We do have a dedicated section for lurking. It's nice, it's comfy. We bought a metric ton of beanbag chairs. We ensure that there's proper heating and air conditioning in that area because, frankly, if you are lurking on stream, you are just as valuable as somebody that is actively participating. So, sorry, I know, I'm sorry, Marvel. I haven't implemented a lurk command yet. Beanbag chairs, my favorite. Yay. So, without further ado, let's get into things. Let's see if CodeCam is going to work. Hey, CodeCam works. Holy crap. And of course, I'm just going to scroll this over just to make sure everything looks right. Everything looks right. So let's get going. All right. So obviously there's a couple of things that I would love to change as part of this code block. But the question was asked before about what do you do in this mythical world of automated testing? And what even is automated testing? So what I would like to start with is this lovely little image. Because I feel like I come back to this image all the bloody time. Like all the bloody time. And as you can see, there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of opinions on this. So I would like to prefix that everything that I am about to say, or most things that I'm about to say, are my personal opinion. I am going to attempt to call out what I have perceived to be industry standard, but at the same time, testing is one of those things that you get different answers from different people. And it purely depends on what kind of value are you trying to get out of testing. So just kind of take that with a grain of salt that I am not the golden rule. I am not the golden standard for testing, yada, yada, yada. I just happen to have my preferences. So that is horrifically pixelated, but that's what I get for downloading a small image. Testing? Ah, I know. I have a bit of a controversial opinion on testing, so we'll see how that goes over. So first things first, what are automated tests? They are exactly what the name implies. It is code that is meant to test sections of your code. Now, if that's not confusing enough, just saying, what the goal of automated testing is, it's meant to check segments of your code. It's meant to check that things are working in the way that you expect them to. And the reason that we write these tests is so that we don't have to remember to test these things. Now, that is a very nuanced statement. It is something that we have like testing experts. We have QA engineers, dedicated engineers that are focused solely on testing frameworks, testing patterns, all of that fun. I thought testing was all right, but my school scarred me. Hopefully I can reverse that to some degree. 715. I hope. I always like to think of tests as automated gut checks. Now, ideally, they are a little bit more than that. Hi, Sorcery. Thanks for stopping by. The support is appreciated. I like to think of tests as automated gut checks, and I think of it that way because that kind of helps me to put value and put motivation behind actually writing the damn things. It's a delicate balance, and I bring this up, this test triangle image, because this is a very common way of viewing things. There are different kinds of tests, and we look at them at different levels. Unit tests are meant to test small pieces of your code. It's this Unix idea of hopefully your code is packaged such that it does, you have functions that do one thing and one thing very well. And a unit test kind of aids to that. They are meant to test those functions and meant to test that those functions are doing exactly what the function is supposed to do. So I'm going to do a little bit of a simple example. And everybody does simple examples. I hope to expand to a little bit nicer example. And in fact, I'm actually going to create a test. Let's do a makedir -p bot. So we're going to make a bot folder, and then we're going to create a bot.go. And then additionally, we are also going to create a bot test.go, which actually I need to double check. I need to double check the standard because I forget. I want to say that it's underscore test. Okay. There's a little bit of a naming convention that that Go looks for, the Go tooling looks for, which is you have a file and then you have file underscore test.go. And that's kind of the convention. So if I come into this bot could do something, right? Hopefully it could do something. So we have a package bot. And let's say that we would have a type bot, which is a struct, and we're not really going to do anything with the bot right now. Sorry, can't think of one. Welcome to the stream, mate. Thanks so much for stopping by. Let's see here. Let's do bot, pointer to bot, and let's, how do we want to do this? Options. Let's say the bot's just gonna say hello, right? Very simple, very, very simple. And the bot is going to say hello by doing something. Let's just say return it as a string. And let's actually format this. Let's make this priv message. Okay, we might be yeeting to some things. We be screaming now. He just came to say hello. Basically, feel. Now that is sorry, I can't think of one's way. He comes in, he kicks the door down, he yells hello to everybody, and then he makes you feel like you're $1 million. He just makes you feel like a good person, and that's why we've been friends for close to a decade. Let's see here. And let's say, let's just say message. This is going to be a message. This is going to be the bot attempting to create a private message. And all we're going to do is return format.sprintf, and then we're going to have that private message format, which I need to come down here and grab because I forget. Sounds like a keyboard to me. I'm really not wrong. Let's bring you back up and let's go to TwitchBot parsing. I'm being a little lazy because I'm coming down here and I'm like, hey, I want to parse some things. I just want to, oh my goodness, that is a long, that was a long thing. All right, let's come back here. That's what she said. Close that out, bot, and return format.sprintf. Let's do, oh, nope. That's all right. Prefix, priv, message. This would be, what would this be? What would this be? Oh yeah, channel, colon, message, if I remember that correctly. I haven't implemented that yet, Phil. Minor details. Have you used MCDC before or equivalence classes? It's not ringing a bell, 715, so I'm not sure. Maybe. MCDC. Words. Hard. Let's see. Let's take a look. Of x is a set of all elements x which gets mapped to f of x. Oh! Ooh, very interesting. Maybe. We'll find out. We'll find out if I've been inadvertently doing equivalence classes. Oh, that looks like math. Why did Streamlabs react even though there's more than just the command? I'm going to imagine that they do something equivalent to what we do, which is they just look at the if has prefix. So if it starts with bang quote, then it assumes you're quoting something or you're wanting a quote. That's my guess, Phil. I'm not entirely sure. So in this case, we're actually just going to do a blank priv message. And then we're going to actually need a %s colon %s. We are going to need a channel and we are going to need a message. So channel and message will come in as a string. Sure. And all this is really doing is it's just a piece of functionality, right? So this is normally where we would start. Or at least in the non-test-driven development world, this is how we would start. This bot needs to send a couple of things. It needs to send a private message. So how do we send a private message? Well, we do something kind of sort of like this. Kind of sort of, but different. Right? Different? Is that the thing? Yeah, we'll come to that. Now, a test for this, what I effectively want to check is I want to check that this is actually doing what I expect it to. This is a bad example because we're basically going to write a test that says that sprintf does what sprintf expects, but then it's also technically good because we can validate that we are actually creating the proper priv message. And that's kind of the thought process. I have a thing, it's supposed to do a thing, so how do I ensure that that thing is doing the thing that I want it to do? Complicated? Confusing? It confuses the crap out of me. So we want to test priv message. And then as an argument, because Go is awesome, testing.t. Because Go is awesome, we have this thing called test priv message. Like, okay. Well, first we need a bot. Well, how do we make a bot? Well, in this particular case, since bot doesn't really have a special constructor function, which maybe we should have a special constructor function. Maybe. We doing packages and testing now? Yeah, dog. And what I want to do is I want to check whether or not this bot is actually doing the priv message proper. And so for channel, we're going to say Medge Labs. And for the message, we're going to say foobar is a lie. So is my typing capabilities. And the test, in the case of Go, is literally something like this. If result does not equal priv message, or we could be even more granular, but we'll start here. Priv message space hash Medge Labs foobar is a lie, then t.fail did not, or we should say received invalid priv message line plus result, so that we can actually see what the thing was that caused us to fail. Too many arguments. Oh, right. Was it fatal F? Fatal F. And then we can change this to a %s, change that to a result. Very simple. Very, very simple. Oh boy. Alan Monsaves? Oh, I hope I didn't butcher your name. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the lab. Custom digital lab coat available upon request. Unfortunately, people thought that I was actually being serious and saying that I was creating custom lab coats. Unfortunately, I'm not that artistic. This is why I code. Oh, let's see here. This is simple. This is very simple. What happens? What do we do with this? Well, what we do is we run go test. No test files. Okay. What if we run go test here? No test files. Why? -run dot -v? No test files. Why is it not finding test files? What did I do? Oh geez, did I forget to do the thing? I think I forgot to do the thing. Oh, this is the part where I'm gonna look super dumb, but you know what? That's okay. I thought it was a dot that included everything. And clearly, you can see how much I've been doing testing in Go. Where's the thing? Something test, go build, go run. Yes, but where's the go test? Go test. Yes. Go test -v should have found the thing, but it didn't find the thing. Let me double check that bot does indeed have. Oh, it's probably because I don't have a reference to it anywhere. Okay. Main.go. And let's see here. Let's just say underscore. This is going to be really bad to do, but underscore equals bot. Undeclared name bot. Quick fix. Restart COC. Yoink, boink. Bot. Undeclared name bot. Is this the part where I start to show that I don't know anything about this? It's highly plausible, actually. Let's see here. That should be all right. Alternatively, I guess we could just come into bot and run go test. There we go. So the problem there, if I remember correctly, is that because my main.go doesn't actually reference the bot, Go doesn't know that that code exists. Aha. So now we got a problem. So the code from this folder doesn't know that that code exists. Officer Wolf, welcome back, mate. Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome back to the lab. We're doing some testing. So because I tried to run go test in this folder, but because the main.go doesn't actually have a reference to the bot, it never found that code. And now we've got a bit of a problem here. Undeclared name bot, which for some reason... Which for some reason quick fix is actually not... is not doing the thing. I forget what the thing is called. I'm sorry, guys. Bear with me just a second. Go to scribe, go diagnostics, go doc, go drop, go files. Sure. That's all right. That's all right. We'll just deal with this. We'll just go into bot and then go run or go test, excuse me. And if we get a go test, we see that we are running a test and it seems to be passing at the moment. Let's see here. Would we run the unit test every time a new iteration of the product is shipped or only when the specific code part was touched? Ideally, we run all of the tests. And that's one of the desirable or one of the reasons why it's desirable for when I was running when I'm back in main and I run go test and it doesn't actually find those tests. That actually means that that's dead code. So technically kind of a way to check that. But yes, ideally we would be running those tests constantly, which is one of the reasons why if you see anybody kind of complaining about test speed, like how long it takes to actually run a test suite, that can actually make or break whether or not a strong testing culture exists inside of the team. GLaDOS heavy breathing. Did someone say testing? They didn't test me before deploying. It was a mistake. I'm terrible at expressions, but I love GLaDOS. Oh my god. Now, but here's the thing though. The tests that we've written up to this point, it's not very good. It's not very good for a couple of reasons, which first I need to track that code, and then it'll show up in here. This is what I would typically call a very fragile test, but also it's not a very it's not very helpful for small issues. So let's say, for example, that I came in here and for whatever reason, you see this colon? Boop. I'm gonna get rid of it. And now that I'm in, let's go test bot -v. Oh, look at that. Now all of a sudden, I have a failure. And you're looking at it, priv message, medlabs, foobar is a lie. Like, that's fine. Why is it failing? And legit, on real projects, I have had this exact problem. And I've been staring at a failure message for Lord knows how long. Like, undesirable amounts of time. And I could not figure out what it was. And obviously we just made this change so we can kind of see, oh, it's failing because it's missing that semicolon. It's missing a core piece of that structure. But the test, as of right now, is not really helping us that much. So what we tend to do with some of these tests is we tend to make them a little more verbose. So we would do things like, and technically this is not proper for IRC, but for example, we could say, well, if not strings.has prefix, t.fatalf, and we can say expected priv message prefix, or what do we want to call this? Expected priv message command got, and we can do kind of the same thing. We can just post result. And at a bare minimum, at least this is a little more succinct in the sense that it's telling us specifically which part of the validation is failing. And so very quickly, if we saw this test fail, so if I were to go back to the bot, and if I were to add the semicolon back in, but if I were to say riv message, whatever a riv message is, and if we go back to the test, well, now at least we get expected priv message command, but got riv message, blah, blah, blah. It's a little bit better. And if you iterate on this further, what you would probably end up with is a, like, for example, if we passed in the message struct, the message struct has those pieces parsed out. So if we messed up the parsing, for example, which we may do that test as an example, then we could specifically say, hey, we expected command to be priv message, but we got, and then specifically what the command is. Personal preference, I like my tests to be granular when it comes to those types of, like, it should follow a very specific structure. I like very granular tests so that it can tell me exactly what the problem is. Pausing for a second, any questions on that, or does that kind of, sort of ish make sense? This is only like a little droplet in the ocean that is testing, but just wanted to kind of do a quick gut check. Where's the Go library that does it for you? Good question, 715. So making tests more specific equals good. Is there too much specification for test? Good question, Doll. It depends, I would say. Let me think of how to visualize this. So I have a bit of the expected part. Yeah, me too. So I have a bit of a personal rule when it comes to testing. I like to test my business logic. I don't like to test the language or the library that I'm using. Now, that's obviously a very kind of like grossly oversimplified statement, but for example, in this particular case, this is kind of sort of my business logic. The business logic is I must be able to send private messages to the IRC, to a channel via IRC. And so writing a test that kind of breaks this down to ensure, yes, this should be prefixed properly. This should follow the correct format. Kind of testing the individual pieces, or as 715 points out, the units of this business logic, in my opinion, is very good. There are some. You can be too specific, and you can also create. What do we want to call it? You can also create very brittle tests, which, technically speaking, the way that everything is written right now, if I go into bot test, right? So right now, the way that this is written right now is very brittle. And I mean, we're just doing string processing, so it's kind of expected. But for example, this will break the minute that we add prefix into the mix. This will potentially break if we decided, or if the spec for Twitch suddenly changed. All of these things may not fail, but they're expected to fail. How do you account for that? I know I'm kind of like glossing over that a little bit, but the short answer is it depends. It heavily depends on what you're doing. I like more detail. I like more specific checks. You can get too detailed, but it's kind of hard to say hard and fast, like, don't do this, but always do this. as with many things in development, it depends. Like, sorry, can't think of one. He actually works with me, IRL, and I don't know. Sorry, how many? Or I should ask this: how annoying is it when you ask me a question and I say it depends for like the 1,000th time that I feel like I've said it depends? It's just a constant stream of it depends, it depends, it depends, it depends. And I was actually talking to Marvel about this a little bit earlier. The idea of like what makes programming an art versus a science. Really good discussion, not gonna lie. And we were talking about kind of the nuances of how there's rarely truly a right answer. And this kind of sort of embodies it. There's not really a right answer for what is too specific for your tests. How annoying is it? It depends. 715 and Fuel, same brain. But that's because you can go at it multiple ways. Exactly, Officer Wolf. There are many different ways to solve a problem. And what is the most appropriate way based on what you know today? That's the way that I like to look at it. Well, my school only wants it one way. Again. This goes back to my problem that I have with formal higher education and programming. They don't teach that. They teach it like it's a right or wrong answer. And I hate it. I hate it so much. All right. So this is a very like small example. It's a very specific example. Hopefully that kind of sort of at least hints at what unit testing kind of sort of looks like. Let me bring my where's my triangle? Now, the reason that the triangle is kind of formatted this way, how you've got this like giant block at the bottom for unit tests, the original idea, and I think I still kind of agree with this to an extent, depending on the code, it depends, of course, was that you would have a large number of unit tests that tested the individual pieces of your application. And you would test those pieces in isolation, which I think it was 715 that mentioned earlier. Yeah, the idea of like, I don't like mocking. Some code, say, interacts with a database, or they interact with an external system. And there's a convention in unit tests to not interact with the external world. We want to keep everything isolated, local, and therefore fast and predictable. But in order to test a database, for example, well, you can't really easily do that. So we typically introduce mocks into the code. And all a mock really is a piece of code that emulates the system that that you would normally call out to, such as, say, a database. You would emulate the database. You would receive a request, you would return an expected response, and then ideally the code is parsing that response in some way. And so you check that the code is parsing that response properly. Or if you're like me and you like seeing how things explode, then you're doing error testing as well. Or as we like to call it, happy path testing versus sad path testing. Checking chat, that depends. So you know that in case it depends on what you... Oh, this is making me sad. What if there's actually an error in the database? Good question, 715. And that is why I like error testing. It's why I like chaos testing. One step up above unit tests is integration tests. Okay, I need to put a disclaimer in front of this. Integration tests are defined differently almost everywhere that I go. In my first real gig, integration tests were still considered to be local code. So we were still mocking external systems, or at a bare minimum, we were using in-memory variants. So, fun fact, there are some tools that exist to emulate databases in memory. So if you're in the Java world, for example, you have tools like H2 or HSQL. Is it HSQL? HyperSQL? Something like that. Basically, it's a system that's running in memory. It's code that's running alongside of your test that is emulating a real database. Very complicated piece of code. And it's, in my opinion, it's necessary. But in an integration test, you're taking all of these units and you're piecing them together. So the unit tests are testing that each of those individual pieces works in isolation. But then you're also turning around and testing with integration tests that those pieces actually work together, that you've actually stitched these units together properly. So my disclaimer was that I prefer integration tests to be local, in memory, and without those external systems. The in-memory database is usually my exception, because if I have an in-memory database available, then that effectively takes the external piece out of the database side, and so I can test things like, is my SQL properly formatted? Am I receiving the result that I want? Yada, yada, yada. And I can at least test that part of the code. It's... what's the phrase that I want to use? That's a hotly contested subject. So I always recommend, especially when you get into a team, and if they already have a dedicated testing process, figure out how they define integration tests. It should still be that you are testing code integrated together. At least that should still be consistent. But see how they define the boundaries. Do they expect integration tests to connect to external systems? If they do, then to me, integration tests kind of take a little bit different approach to how they are run. With unit tests, run them all the time. They're not connecting to anything. You don't have to worry about being connected to the internet, yada, yada, yada. Like, you can just run them over and over and over, and that's the goal of unit tests. Integration tests, if they connect to external systems, you kind of have to be careful, because you could potentially either DDoS the system that you're connecting to, which is never fun to explain. Like, try explaining to somebody why you're DDoSing a database server that contains sensitive information. That's not a fun discussion. Totally not speaking from personal experience. What? If the integration tests are actually mocked, so if those boundaries are kind of mocked out, then I would say that integration tests are a fantastic place to test the feature. In the case of our bot, for example, if we had a proper integration testing setup, so right now we're very explicitly connecting to Twitch directly. So we can see that with the WebSocket connection. There was a trick that would have been doable if our lovely WebSocket connection implemented io.reader, where we could return something that returns io.reader, and then in a test, we could fake it. So we could effectively create a fake local mocked Twitch. And then using that mock, the bot could actually be sending and receiving commands to check, and we can use that to check to see if it's actually sending the commands that we expect, which is a super powerful capability. And it's funny that you mentioned functional programming, 7115, because one of the reasons that I really like functional programming, especially when you get kind of deep into the more, call it intermediate to advanced styles of functional programming, especially like functional effects, those lend to testing really nicely. Like if you follow the rules, they lend to testing really nicely. And it makes setting up those boundaries really nice. Right here, we're kind of not setting up those boundaries very nice, all things considered, because IRC is really just a wrapper around our Gorilla WebSocket. It's a very thin boundary. It is technically a boundary, but it's a very thin boundary. And Lord knows if we tried to actually test this, to mock this, we would have to mock this. But anyway, something that we could do if we did have a mock, though, is we could fake Twitch, and then we could write an integration test that says it should authenticate properly.
Vicious mockery. Cuttlefish.
If you don't get that reference, I look like a weirdo right now, and that's okay. Hello, am Medj, am weird. So what we could write is effectively an integration test that checks whether or not we receive the pass command and the nick command, and we can validate that the bot actually sent the proper bits. And that's super powerful. Like, that is super powerful. And you might think, well, if you wrote a unit test for the pass command, and if you wrote a unit test for the nick command, aren't you duplicating that effort? And technically the answer is yes. Technically. So that's kind of where the gray area starts to come in of, should you unit test or should you integration test? Maybe both? One or the other? Kind of depends. I don't get that reference, you weirdo. Yeah, you know. That's just kind of mood when you're my friend, unfortunately. Maybe none. You agent of chaos 715. Are you telling me that you don't write tests? Is that what you're telling me? Oh, that's a whole different discussion altogether. There are actually cases, and I will say, there are some cases where it does not make sense to write a unit test. But we may get into that here in just a little bit. So gut checking real quick. Unit tests, integration tests, any questions? Oh, got a question. So still question, would you program an overflow into a bot in case someone was trying to break the bot? So good question, Officer Wolf. I'm actually going to come back to that in just a second, because that is actually the next level of testing, or at least for me, that is typically the next level of testing. Thank you, Matcha. We are prepared to do some quality coding. No questions on unit versus integration? Double checking. Good. Oop, I lost chat. Okay. Checking edge cases. I like your thinking, Officer Wolf. Yes, exactly, doll. So, edge cases, which, yes, I get the edge case pun all the time. Like, all the time at work. Edge cases. What is an edge case? Edge case is that weird thing that could potentially happen, and it shouldn't happen, but it could happen. So in the case of Officer Wolf's question, programming an overflow into the bot, which Officer Wolf, just want to double check. By overflow, do you mean things like if somebody was just flooding the application or flooding the bot with a bunch of stuff, like catching that and doing something with it? There's a bunch of trolls on Twitch. Yes, absolutely. So I would typically put that in acceptance test or possibly in performance test. Depends. There's kind of a section in here that's typically acceptance tests slash performance tests. And I usually group them together because I typically use acceptance tests to run performance tests. Medj cases. Yes, Marvel. Medj cases. Medj cases. One of the last teams that I was a lead for before I went to my current job, they actually called themselves the Medj cases because that's how, like, when we have multiple teams working on the same product, one of the first things that we did was name the teams, and they named themselves the Medj cases. And I came back to work one day and they informed me that they had done so, and they had like Medj cases written everywhere, and I just kind of was like, oh. It's one thing to make a pun on my name. It's another thing to put that pun all over the project plan. I appreciate you all implicitly. But yes, so in the case of the bot being spammed, and we could do something like a timeout feature or a global cooldown. So a cooldown on a command is absolutely something that we would want to check to ensure that, well, if you send shout out, sorcery, and sarcasm, hopefully, that can't be spammed over and over and over again. Hopefully. And to 715's point, there could also be rate limits on the service itself, which in Twitch's case, there is a rate limit. So these are all things to be considered as part of the overall running operation of the app. And whether it makes sense to do that in integration test or whether it makes sense to do that in acceptance test kind of depends on what you're testing. To me, I would almost see the rate limiting as being able to fall into either acceptance or integration. It kind of depends on how you write it. I think I would say I typically see those types of tests in acceptance tests. Remember? Yeah. So you would effectively flood the bot with a bunch of requests in the span of, say, 2 to 3 seconds, and then you could write a test that says, expect that only one output of shout out at sorcery and sarcasm was encountered during that test. You could, with that IO reader mock that I was talking about, you could actually test that in an integration test. So that's why I say it kind of depends on how you write it, what your tools support, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, absolutely, that's a very good call out. Let's see. What's the other thing that I wanted to say about all these? Now, I'll also very briefly comment that yes, there are sometimes cases for manual tests, and I see this a lot with authentication systems. Like when there's not an easy way to hook into the authentication system in an automated fashion, sometimes people will just write those out as playbooks. It'll literally just be a document that says step 1, log in, step 2, go to this page, step 3, do this, validate that, the following shows up on the screen. I don't see a lot of these anymore, thankfully, because we've finally stepped into the year 2020, and a lot of the more modern and sensible systems have automated hooks, or at least they have automation capabilities. But manual tests do still have their place. The ideal scenario, though, is to back those down into some form of automated tests. And it is worth mentioning that ideally from like the manual test divider line down, so acceptance tests, performance tests, integration tests, and unit tests, these should all be automated in the sense that there should be a command. Hopefully it's as simple as go test. Right? But whatever the tool is, there should be a command that you can just run, and then all of those tests get executed. I'm always trying to look at it from malicious intent of people. That's a good way of looking at it. Or the way that I like to look at it is, how can your code fail? Like, reasonably, how can your code fail? And if we look at the bot, the only way that we could reasonably make this code fail is if we created a malformed string. And so in that case, we can kind of focus in very specifically on writing tests that ensure that this string never becomes malformed. And it's a good way to check that, someone like me in Vim accidentally hits the X key, saves it for whatever reason, quits out, and then if I run go test on bot, it'll catch it, right? That's the goal, at least. AKA why I'm going to security. Yo, it's a real good thing. Just saying. Go test. Now we want to go back into Vim. Medjbar is a lie. You're not technically wrong, all things considered. What else did I want to say? Does that all make relative sense? Hopefully I actually answered the original questions. Testing's kind of I'll call it a nuanced thing, but I also consider it to be very, very necessary. If for nothing else, think of testing as a little bit of time invested into into not having to worry about whether or not that piece of code continues to work. It is a bit of an art form. It does take a little bit of kind of futzing around with it to really ensure that you get that, you start to write those tests that really give you that value. And I always encourage people, especially when you're talking about writing tests, think about what value that test gives you. If that test doesn't give you any value, you could argue that there's no reason to keep it there. And I argue that a lot in my work, because every line of a test that you write is code. So you have to maintain that code. And, what's the golden rule? Less bugs is usually a result of less code. Can't get a bug out of code that you didn't write. Tests are code. Tests are things that have to be maintained over the lifetime of this application. So the more that you write, that's more stuff that you have to maintain. But that's a desirable trade-off usually if those tests are giving you kind of the peace of mind that you can write this priv message function. You can write this test that ensures that this code does what it's supposed to do. And then you can move on from that code, and you now have what is effectively like an assistant that is constantly checking to make sure that that code didn't break for whatever reason. And same thing for integration tests. When you think of integration tests at the feature level, so say, for example, the feature is, back to our main.go function, the feature is the bot should connect and authenticate to Twitch IRC. If you write an integration test that validates that the pass command is sent first with the valid credentials, and then the nick command is sent with valid nickname, then you effectively can constantly assert that feature is working. And you don't have to think about it most of the time. Update the code, you update the tests. Exactly. Again, you have to maintain the code. So if you change the implementation, if we were to say, if we go back to bot, if the format of a priv message was changed, then we would have to update the test to reflect that, hence the maintenance side. The more code, though, the easier usability. I'm not sure I understand the question, Officer Wolf. I'm sorry. Are you saying the more code, the easier it is to use? I guess the test should be kept simple. If they get too complex, how else can I expect the test itself to work as intended? Testing the test seems crazy. Absolutely, doll. Tests can get crazy, especially when you start talking about mocks. And when you start talking about mocks, things just kind of go out the window. But even just the idea of test setup, but also as you start to get into some of the more complicated integration test layers, they can get pretty complex. And yes, the further into complex that you go, the more that you have to be super careful. And if you start writing tests for your test, then you know you've gone way too far. Here we go. If you have more code, you have more features, the easier it could be for end users to use. Sometimes. Let's see here. It's not always the case. More code doesn't necessarily mean more features. Sometimes you could do the exact same amount of feature work with less code. It really depends on what you're doing. Let me see. Do I have an example? You can never have too many tests. Exactly. You can never have too many tests, but you can have tests that have no value, which is always fun to. That's always a fun conversation to have with people. And I always like to ask, so what is this test doing? And if they can't explain what the test is doing, or if they can't explain what the test does that's either different or beneficial, I always struggle with how to tactfully say, okay, well, I think that we should delete this test. It doesn't seem like it's really providing any value. Because who wants to hear that code that they wrote isn't providing any value? Personally, I would love to hear that, because I would much rather hear that and be able to delete that code. But some people don't really take kindly to that. The moral of this story is don't take it personal. It's all meant to make the code more hygienic. Don't fall in love with your code. Exactly, my dude. It's so weird having my isms spat back at me. And I kind of love it. Don't fall in love with your code. When somebody says that a piece of code is their baby, I cringe. I cringe because more often than not, more than likely, that code's going to go away. Or more than likely, something about that code's going to get changed. And I cringe because I'm going to do it. I'm going to mess with that code. I'm going to change it. I'm going to chop it up. I'm going to change it to the new requirements. And I can just feel that Slack message coming in like, yo, why are you touching my code? Like, it's not your code. It's the company's code. We just work for them. That's a whole different... That's a reality show. That could absolutely just be a reality show. Just developers banting with each other about the code. Like, anybody ever seen IT Crowd? Imagine IT Crowd, but for developers. Oof. Ooh, so good. All right. Gonna sneak Streamlabs in here just to make sure that everything looks good. Thank you. Or code that's essentially the same, just rewritten differently. Interesting idea. So, do you see a bit of duplication here? Anybody see a bit of duplication here? Or perhaps down here? See a little bit of duplication? Or maybe down here? See a little bit of duplication? I see some duplication. What do you do with duplication? You abstract... No. I just made so many... Like, I can feel people that I've worked with before. Like, I can feel their ears burning. They just write shit out. Exactly. So I see a common pattern for something that we've done over and over again, and that's this idea of sending a command. And specifically, sending a command back to the IRC. And notice that we're kind of doing some parsing. We're doing parsing. We're duplicating that parsing. Like, for example, for a private message, we duplicate that format here and here. Well, what if that format changed? Well, now we got to change it here and here. Oh, and we also have it up here, so we have to change it up here if the pass command changed, but this is a little different, just a little bit different, but not really different. It's really not different. It's actually the same. So, is that a Taliesin emote? That is a Taliesin emote. Crit roll Goth Dad. Oh, long may he reign. There's a common thread here, which is that we are doing this if error equals irc.write, error does not equal to nil, log.fatalf, log.fatalf. Admittedly, in some cases, we do an error f or a printf instead of a fatal f. But there's the commonality here of, well, we're sending a command back to the IRC, and that command is expected to be in a particular format. And so remember how we made the read function more strongly typed by, instead of returning a string, we return a parsed message. Well, why not do the same thing with write? Like, why not have write also take a strongly typed object? And then if we did that, instead of the bot formatting, the bot could potentially create that message and send that message to the IRC. And then potentially throughout our code, instead of duplicating that that formatting of priv message, if we go back to main.go, instead of duplicating the formatting of priv message and the irc.write error is not equal to nil, blah, 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 like we still have a little bit of this, but the formatting and the general function of that, we could abstract that into a more kind of sane functional piece. And then we could write a test just for that function. We could validate that that piece of it continues to work. And then we can start reducing the amount of code that we use. We can all throughout the code base, instead of constantly recreating this priv message line, we can centralize that into a function. We can use that function instead of all of this over and over again. And then we've effectively reduced the amount of code that we end up writing. Same number of features, fewer lines of code. Is that always a good thing? Not necessarily. Is it always a good thing to abstract things into function? Not necessarily. And I know that's a little bit of a controversial statement. But to kind of like rehash the point, more lines of code does not necessarily mean more features. And same thing of like, if you ever get into an interview with a company, ask them how they measure success of a developer. Like, how do they measure that a developer is doing a good job? If they say they count the lines of code that you produce, eject. Eject, eject, eject. Get out. Get out. Fast as you can. Counting lines of code is not a measure of success. It is not a measure of efficiency. Get to the chopper. Get out of there. Just saying. No. So again, just the point being that lines of code does not necessarily mean quality of code, nor does it necessarily mean the absence or the presence or absence of features. But I just wanted to kind of double in that I kind of went all over the place there, but that is a very good question. Personally, I strive to write less code because the less code that I write, the less code that I have to test, the less code that I have to maintain, and therefore, the smaller the surface area, potentially, for bugs. Not always the case, but could be. Sometimes a code with more lines can be easier to maintain. As always, it depends. Exactly, doll. And sometimes writing more code can also be easier to read, like in kind of the same line of easier to maintain, same idea. The more compact solution might be clever, but it might not be clear. And I always prefer clear to clever. Always. Sometimes writing more code has a negligible performance impact. It's something that you always have to kind of measure to be absolutely sure. But if there's a negligible performance difference and writing more lines of code, say you're more explicit about this is foo, this is bar, and the combination of which is foo bar, if that's easier to read and it's kind of easier to follow, I almost always prefer that version to finding a clever way to kind of compact the code and do the same thing with less, but then I end up sacrificing readability. I try not to sacrifice readability as much as possible. But I also think if you're only going to use it once, you shouldn't move it into its own function. Agreed, 715. Over abstraction is definitely a hard thing to quantify. And I mean, obviously we've had a good bit of abstraction with even just the creation of IRC, which if you've never heard the term abstraction literally means creating a layer on top. It's a layer of it's attempting to simplify a complex thing. So in the case of IRC, we are abstracting the process of connecting to a WebSocket. Let's see here. Connecting to a WebSocket, which is all of this code, sending messages to a WebSocket, reading messages from a WebSocket. All of these functions are considered abstractions. They're attempting to make the process of connecting to an IRC easier. Banana Cat! Welcome back to the lab, mate. Thanks so much for stopping by. Let's see here. But IRC is considered an abstraction. It's trying to make that simpler. That does not always mean, though, that it makes sense to abstract. And case in point, the current state of bot.go. Does it really make sense for the bot to have priv message? You could argue either way, I think. But it kind of depends. I think having a priv message function somewhere does kind of sort of make sense. But you could possibly do the exact same thing with that change to the IRC write function that I just mentioned. And then instead of writing, you would do something like irc.write message. And then it would be command is priv message, which you could make that even nicer if you really wanted to. You could say command is priv message, channel is channel, and message is banana cat. Banana cat. And technically speaking, this is kind of a good enough abstraction, depending on how you look at it. It's abstracting the creation of a priv message. Not fully, but this abstraction is very wide. I call it a wide abstraction. You can send any message to it, so you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons there. But Does it make sense to have a bot that has a function called priv message? Depends on how many times you're sending a priv message. Maybe, maybe not. Man, we're going into some deep philosophical stuff tonight, and I really like it. I do need to take a quick break, about 30 seconds to a minute or so. So give me just a second. If you all want to continue questions in the chat, I will answer those when we come back. But give me... And I return. Oh, thank you for your patience. All right. No messages in chat. Fantastic. Did I don't know what happened to my voice there. Holy crap. Oof. That was a sound. Double checking. Yay, it looks good. Hold on, my hair looks terrible. What do we want to do? I think I kind of do want to go down the path of making write more functional, but since we're on the subject of testing, any other questions from the chat before I move on to making some more code changes? Actually, I'm also going to do a quick check. All right, because going to the BRB screen does indeed reset the chat widget. Why does it do that? Why does it do that? I have many a question about this. Let's bring Twitch up here. No questions. Fantastic. Oh, welcome to the chat room. Of course, it booted me. It booted me again. Terrible. Terrible. All right. Let's close that out. Refresh chat. All right. Nope. Oh, no. And now, of course, I can't see. There we go. You can set it to not do that. If you read this, that means I own this. Minor details. Minor details. I'm actually going to pull this forward so you're all going to see Streamlabs there for a second. I apologize. I'm breaking the fourth wall just a little bit. But now I have Streamlabs chat actually visible, which is handy. And then I have the trusty MacBook over here, keeping track otherwise. All right. So traveling down this thought, this idea of, well, what if we made the right function more strongly typed? In the same capacity, I do think it makes sense for this to accept a message. Since message has kind of become our container, if you will, for some of this code, I think it makes sense to do something like this. So we want to do message equals format.sprintf, and this is going to be prefix message or prefix command colon params. 715, can I get a quick gut check that actually looks proper? I know I'm being a little lazy, just a wee bit lazy, and I apologize. And we want to say message dot prefix message dot command and strings dot join message dot params join with a space. And then if strings dot has prefix, we actually don't have to do. So we want to change this to if message dot command does not equal pass. Let me compare and contrast that. If not strings dot has prefix, message pass, versus if message dot command does not equal pass. Which one reads better? Making things more strongly typed and pushing to a more functional level can, and often in my experience, has the effect of making code more readable, like so. Oh, nope, we want that to be message.command. And it probably makes sense to call this message string, since that is indeed what it is doing. And then we can change that to message string. What if it doesn't have a message part? That's a good question. Isn't there always at least one param the channel? I believe that's correct. And it's actually making me wonder if we might need to reformat the message a little bit, but we'll see. Yeah, let me take a look here. Let's take a look into main.go. Depends on the command. So right now in main.go, we're effectively doing a priv message plus channel plus :world. So technically speaking, yes, in the sense of the priv message. No, technically for ping pong. And ping pong, we could actually represent as a message. We could effectively just take the message, change it from ping to pong, and then send it back again. So there's a potential case to condense this a little bit. So if we were to use that as it exists right now. This is an exercise that I like to do. It's like, what would it look like if I changed what we have now? Message equals, what would it look like? Sorry, I'll actually finish a thought. What would it look like if I changed what we have now to what I'm currently envisioning it being? Or sometimes I'll even write out what I would want it to be, and then I worry about making the changes necessary to actually implement that thing. So in this case, it would be message. Command is priv message, and then params would be, that would become a slice of string of channel, and then world. It's not great. Yeah, it's not great. Maybe something like that. Okay. That's okay, I suppose. We could probably make that better. But yeah, let's see. You would probably only use priv message. Highly plausible. At least from the perspective of like the bot doing things. It definitely needs to be able to read a series of different message types. But for the most part, it would only be responding with a priv message, which I was kind of thinking about, like, what kinds of features would I actually want this bot to actually do? And I think most of them just kind of surrounded themselves around priv message, if I remember correctly. Didn't necessarily want the bot to be doing, like, user management type things. So I was tempted to get rid of that. But anyway, let's actually move that up. Or, yeah, we can leave it there. Okay, so just looking at this kind of in comparison from what we had to what we're doing now. So for priv message, okay, yeah, it's not terrible. We have reduced the amount of work that we're doing. It's not great though. I feel like we could make this better. But let's see. Let's actually also use ping. What we could do, we could say response equals, I just wanted to do ping pong as well, just to see what it would look like. Response equals message. And here we have command is pong. Params is actually just from the original message dot params. And then prefix, I think, would also just be message dot prefix. Response equals message. We would want IRC dot message, I think. Oh, interesting. It's actually not doing what I expected it to do. I have to come back to that. This would become just response. Or really, we should call this Pong. Because how can you not call it Pong? It's Pong. We're writing Pong. Oof. I think I did try to do that at one point. Didn't go very well. IRC message undefined. Type IRC.IRC has no field. Oh, right. I feel like I'm doing something silly. What I do is just have a priv message function and a raw string. It's fair. That's probably, I think, where we're gonna end up. Because as I look at how this looks, like for ping pong, it's okay. You could argue whether or not we've made the code better, and it's kind of the same idea from earlier. You have potentially less code could be more readable, or maybe in this case, more code is more readable. Which one makes more sense? I don't know. I am kind of sort of leaning towards this version, though. I do like it. Undeclared name message, which I call shenanigans because message actually comes from IRC. So, channel equals message.params, message equals priv message. But this, yeah, I'm not really a fan of this version. I think it kind of makes sense to have kind of what 715 is hinting at, a priv message function that's dedicated to just sending a priv message. Yeah, I think I like that idea. So let's go back into IRC. Does it make sense for it to be in IRC? Maybe. Let's see here. We would need a channel and a message as the string, and we can potentially return an error. To do. Does this belong here? Make it work, make it right, make it pretty. In that order, preferably. Okay. So then our message would still become our message object. Our prefix would be empty in this particular case. Our command would be priv message, and then our params would be the slice of string that we had before, which would be channel and then plus message, question mark. Might be doing that, might not be. I need to go sleep now, have rest. Thank you so much, Fiol. Hope you have a good rest of your night. Sleep well, and we will see you in the next stream. Thank you so much for stopping by, mate. Have a good one. Let's see here. Oh, yep, we're missing the yam. Then we close that. It would help if I could actually type the things that are in my head, but and then we would just return write message. IRC.write. Correction. Double checking this. Prefixes are only sent by the server. Gotcha. So priv message, because we should document our code in some cases, sends a private message to the IRC. No prefix attached. Which is an important distinction. Might be handy for later. It's kind of a good practice to include nuances like this in a code comment. Since this is effectively an API that we're building, or it's our abstraction that we're building, we shouldn't always have to rely on people like knowing to jump to this code definition to know that prefix is empty. It's much easier, much quicker. And in the case of like when we have like down here at the bottom where I have this code completion helper, in my humble opinion, we should make that as easy as possible. Now, in this case with write, it's undocumented. Oh no! But if I come up here and if I say write writes a message to the IRC stream, and if I come down here, okay, again, there's that message, there's that code comment. A lot of IDEs will do that. They will have some form of documentation pop up that'll at least like give you a hint of like, hey, this method that you're trying to use, here's what the developer says this method does. And if you make that short, succinct, and you call out some of those nuances, you can save somebody the necessity of jumping to your code. Which is also kind of surprising that not a lot of people actually know that go to definition is a thing. So you can't always rely on that. Reads from the IRC stream one line at a time and formats to a message. Although I don't think that we really need to include that last part, because to the point of code documenting itself, IRC reads from the IRC stream one line at a time. The inclusion of the one line at a time thing, in my opinion, is beneficial to include. But then if somebody was looking at the definition of this read function, they see that the return type is a message or an error. Potentially both, but we like to think or. Oh, 1 second. Aha. Sweet. But we don't necessarily have to add that to the comment because the return type is strongly typed. So it is kind of in some sense self-documenting, but not everything is self-documenting. So we still want that to do to be there. That to do to be there. Apologies, my brain just went. So now we've got our write that is more strongly typed. We have our priv message, which potentially does what we want it to do. So let's save that. Let's go back to main. And let's if error equals irc.priv message channel world. Error does not equal to nil. Then we do the thing. Whoops. Which I just want to leave those there for comparison, just so that we can look at them. And now, of course, we have all of these bits, so we would also have to change that. Pong should be okay. Yeah, Pong should be okay. I'll come back to that though. which obviously I am still making a mess for myself because I have IRC. I really need to change this to client. Yeah, I need to change this to client. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a little bit of a Vim hackery IRC dot. Nope, I want the. Oop, didn't want to do that. %s. I want IRC the literal dot. I'm sorry, all I can't type worth a damn right now. Literal IRC dot. I want to change that to client dot. Change that everywhere. There we go. Using a little bit of regex hackery, and this I want to be IRC dot new client. And now we can't do that because everything has to be a command. So for the sake of simplicity, oh, I can't roll that back very easily. That's okay. That's okay. We'll change this. So pass CMD is now going to become a message. Appreciate everybody kind of sticking with the slightly drier stream. Params is a slice of string containing token. And then that looks okay. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for Nick. We're going to yoink, boink, nope, boink. This is Nick. So you can kind of see as we're going through these motions to change this over, it's not very ergonomic to do this. Like it was kind of a good idea, I think, on paper to make the right command more strongly typed. But the more that I use it, the more that I'm kind of starting to look at it like, maybe not, but keep going with it. See how it works for us. And then we got irc.message. That was more or less what the problem was from earlier. Why we were getting this undeclared name message. It's because message is in the IRC package, so we have to explicitly say use the IRC package. And then down here we have priv message. So actually we don't need message anymore. Same thing for here. We can just change this to priv message. Change that to channel. And then the messages, shout out Sorcerer and Sarcasm. Same thing for this. This is the join channel, irc.message. Command, excuse me, is join, and params is a slice of string containing channel. And now we're not importing FMT anymore because we're not doing a bunch of fmt.sprintfs everywhere. Is that good? Is that bad? We don't know. Another thing to note because of the testing kind of theme from tonight having all of this code, this is a lot of business logic that currently sits inside of the main.go. I would say that that's not typical, and it's not typical because this is not very testable. So we may do that on another stream since it's getting a little bit late. But just to call it out, that there is a refactor opportunity as well, which would be to take this code, basically extract it out into, maybe it makes sense to have that bot command. And then we move all of this code into bot such that it is effectively usable and testable. And then the main code becomes very short. It becomes, shall we say, it becomes a little bit more focused on grab inputs or grab variables from the external world, in our case this get env, and then just running the bot. I feel like encapsulating the commands for a long time. It did take a bit of work, yes. That's why you got to be careful about full refactors. Full refactors can really turn into a time sink. So you would just have a bot.run command, maybe. Whether it's a bot.run, a bot.connect, who knows? Probably a bot.run. I do like that idea. Or bot.deploy. This is why developers can't be trusted to name things, because we just start memeing names immediately. Righty. Pass. Nick. Which I'm still seeing a little bit of a Autobots rollout. I am still seeing a bit of a pattern here, which is what I'm starting to call a simple message. Maybe I'll make that change. Maybe I won't. We'll see. Simple message to me was just like, here's the command, here's the message, and the params is just the message, whatever that message is. So instead of having to constantly construct a slice of strings, which is leaking implementation details everywhere, we might be able to clean that up a little bit. All right. I'm going to source the access token, and let's do a go run main.go. See where we get. We are connected. So if we do hey hello. Uh-oh. But your write function doesn't work properly. You know, I think I got ahead of myself. Although, no, it doesn't work properly. It's still connected, surprisingly. So it makes me think that I might have done something wrong. Oh, I shouldn't have closed the terminal to check that. Let's go into IRC, come down to write. Double check that that looks okay. Looks relatively okay. Let's try this again. Source, and then go run main.go. Okay. Oh, hang on a sec. I'm adding a colon somewhere. So that's why it's not showing up. You're seeing the hello, but you're not seeing the world. Yeah. Shit. Things I don't really want to end stream on that. I kind of do want to fix that. And the easy fix could be to just take the semicolon out and then push that requirement down here. So effectively kind of like what we're doing right now. But that would also mean that everywhere else, so we would need to add, pass doesn't need it, Nick doesn't need it. I can't remember if, I think we would need to append, or actually we need to, oh shit. I might have made a, I might have goofed ping pong. Look. Actually no, because that would come in, as is. I think ping pong's okay. Priv message is still fine. Join is still fine. Okay. Let me see. Let's see. How's that looking? Join : MedgeLabs. Did I not change that? Hang on a sec. Exit. I probably didn't. I probably did something silly like I didn't save it. IRC right. Prefix, command, string.join params with a space. I was, yeah. It's the joys of hiding implementations inside of a format.sprintf. It's like, okay. And just to make sure that I'm not going crazy, You're right, shouldn't send a prefix ever. Ah, ha 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 ha. So literally just do like that. Ah. That's not where I wanted to go. Come back here. Which in this case, we wouldn't have prefix. Yeah, okay, okay. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. Go run main.go. See where we get. It's still attacking the colon. What is the Where's it getting the colon? Where is it getting the colon? Although, am I connected? Hello? Oh. You remember how I said that this was going to be a raw stream in the sense that y'all are going to see all of my successes, all of my failures, and all of my embarrassment? There you go. Case in point, everybody. But where is it getting the colon? That's what's messing with me. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And channel is just hash MedgeLabs. Did you not save? I thought I did. Save, 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 save. Double checking. No. Okay. Okay. Did you make the join a priv message? Let's double check. IRC.message. Nope, it is still a client.write. The real question is, has it always been doing this? Watch somebody come back and be like, yo, Doug, you know that it always had the colon? It's like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Oh, you know what? I think I know where that is. I think I know where that is. You know where it is? I know where it is now. It's because it wasn't actually sending the semicolon. It wasn't sending the colon. Remember this this string method that we wrote as effectively a toString? It was printing out that it sent it with a colon, but it wasn't actually sending it with a colon. Hence why everything was still working, because it wasn't actually sending the colon. And just to make absolutely bloody sure, source the thing, go run. Oh, chat. Programming is not always glamorous. But hey, we're back to where we were. And have we made the code better? Well, we have certainly added more to IRC, and we've certainly changed the way that we send private messages. Case in point, this could have potentially been found automatically with tests. Thank you, doll. Exactly. And I mean that sincerely and not sarcastically. That right there is a perfect representation of why we write tests. Oh, the ever chasings of a colon. Don't take that out of context. We have changed the way that we send private messages. We have changed the way that we send messages in general. Now, have we done that in an effective way? I would say that this would maybe be a V2, but I think it could definitely use for some changes. It could definitely be better. Like, instead of having to do this, I think it would behoove us to be able to do something even simpler. Like, maybe we have a client.pong, or maybe that's the responsibility of the bot. Right? Maybe we have a bot that has a bot.pong. Maybe the write function doesn't really make sense to be a message, or maybe there's a better way to do that. And additionally, there's also another thing that's been kind of sticking out to me, which is the use of priv message, all caps, in various places in the code, as well as kind of this kind of stringly typed ping pong and so on and so forth. There are ways that we could make that better. And same thing for 715, I agree. Same thing, like this is a very kind of raw, lower level API. We have added an abstraction to it. Like, I mean, just looking at the IRC command, we have absolutely added an abstraction over the raw con.write message. So we're already getting better. But I think we could take it one step further, and perhaps inside of bot. So bot has priv message, although because the bot never has a prefix, as been called out, we could instead hide the logic of creating that message. So maybe it does make sense to have priv message out of IRC and in the bot. And then additionally, we could also have commands like, say, func bot, say, authenticate. And with authenticate, we would authenticate with a nick and a password. So we could basically start making what I like to call more of a business API. This is a collection of functions. It's an abstraction on top of the raw technical implementation of IRC, which is where we start writing things like what 715 is talking about. That kind of make it very explicit what we're doing. We're authenticating to Twitch. We are bot star bot. We are joining a channel, etc., etc. Would you call it a library? Depends, maybe. Yeah, I'd say it depends. It heavily depends on how reusable this API is. If the API is super specific to the application that you are building, maybe not. If it's something generic, which I find myself doing things like abstractions over, say, HTTP servers in Golang. I kind of follow the Matt Ryer approach of like the server struct with handlers hanging off and some functions that live inside that server. I would call that a library. Would I call this a library? It could. It very well could be. Whether or not I want to support that or not, different discussion. Let's see here. What else would we have? We'd have authenticate, we'd have join, we'd have priv message, and we'd have bot, pong, of course. All right. So we're getting a little low on time, but so what I've done is I've basically just sketched out the APIs that I think I want this bot to support. So this would be authenticate. Oh, gee. I think Vim just had a stroke. Oh my goodness. I don't know what happened there. Also, I would recommend you to send pings of your own. Can you elaborate on that, 715? I think I know what you're talking about, but just to be sure. Given nick and password. From my experience, commands are often categorized with enumerations. Is there something equivalent or better in Go? IOTAs, I think. Well, but then IOTAs wouldn't really make sense there. It depends. I've seen some people encapsulate them as structs. So, for example, I've seen people do things like type, priv message, struct, and then they'll do something to the effect of. Actually, they'll probably have something like type command interface. Whether you do this or not, to be determined. You would have a command. I'm just gonna spitball this, and then priv message would have priv message command, which returns a string, and then they would return priv message. Now, why I did it that way, why I used a an interface, like an explicit type, is that you could then write a function. Say your function write could be taking any command that implements the command interface. And then you could basically do a command to get the actual string out of it. And then that's what I see. That's one way that I see people doing that. I wouldn't necessarily call it the best way to do it because there's also just like constants. You can just do plain old constants in Go, which would be things like priv message equals priv message. Join equals join, yada yada yada. Is this any better? You could argue either way, I think. But yes, there are a couple of ways to do the equivalent of enumerations in Go. I actually don't know if Go has a dedicated enumeration though. Didn't intend to rhyme that many times. So you would send a ping to see if you're still connected, since Twitch could silently kill your connection. It didn't for me, and so nothing happened. Okay, you could also use it to detect latency between you and the Twitch server. If it took too long to get a pong, you could reconnect. Gotcha. Okay. Which is definitely something that could potentially be added into the bot. The bot, as part of its initialization, could possibly spin up a Go routine that is handling the ping pong kind of like implicitly. So you don't have to have an explicit read function somewhere else in your code that's doing the ping pong. The bot can just set itself up to have that Go routine do the ping pong for you. And if there's an exception, if there's some type of error, like the TCP connection gets closed or something of that nature, then you could effectively have that Go routine handle that. And it would be just a thing that happens as part of the bot being constructed, which is a tempting idea. This mostly happens when there has been no activity for some time. Gotcha. Okay. I would be curious to see. I wonder if that's why Twitch implemented the ping pong, which I don't remember if ping pong is an IRC specific thing or if that's a Twitch addition. But that's something interesting to look into. We could definitely we'll be looking at that as part of the to-do for how to do error handling, how to do like the retry logic. I'm definitely envisioning that some of that retry logic may potentially exist inside of this bot, because it seems like a good place to abstract that, maybe. So, let's see here. Joins to a specific channel on the IRC. Priv message sends a message to the given channel. without prefix. And Pong responds to ping. Okay. I think we'll leave these for the next stream as something to potentially look into implementing. I am well pleased with how this code is starting to kind of clean itself up. This is actually turning into a pretty nice piece of software. And just to kind of call it out, so let me see if I can get the cam. Hey, it actually worked. Holy crap. So I think we're gonna close down stream there. What I would like to do, and I'll add this to Discord. Again, want to kind of pull out to see how people feel about like features that they want to see effectively. What would you like to see as part of this bot? How it works? Do you want to see, say, for example, a web UI? Would it be beneficial to see what it looks like to spin up that backend server, build a front-end web application, and then connect the two together and kind of talk about how that happens? I bring that up explicitly because I've actually had somebody ask me what that looks like. So that was just one possible idea. What will you do with the web UI? Probably just implement like a chat bar. Maybe like re-implement Twitch's own chat widget and just have that as a web page, I guess. That would actually be kind of interesting. I'm starting to convince myself of a suggestion that somebody else gave me. But we don't necessarily have to do that. We can do other things. We can go back into the deployment side and we can actually revisit Docker like I said I would this time. Whoops. We could dig deeper into testing. We could look into performance testing, metrics collection. Like there is so much that we could do. So I will post that in the Discord just to see what people are thinking, what people are interested in. We can kind of go from there. But I don't know about you guys, but I am really digging how this bot is starting to turn out. So I'm super excited to see where it goes. Before we close down stream, any last minute questions, curiosities, anything you wanted to see that you didn't see, anything like that? And in the meantime, thank you everybody for stopping by. Again, the support is greatly appreciated. It's such a fun time to just sit here, chat with you all, just bant away, and build something fun, like building a Twitch bot. Why not? Get out of here, AutoMod. Oy vey. My secret testing fetish was satisfied. Hey, man. Testing is definitely something that I could go into a pretty long tirade about. And a good, bad, neutral, however you want to look at it, I still believe that testing is a very relevant thing. It's something that I believe that every developer should at least be familiar with. If not, should at least be comfortable writing their own unit tests. If you're not sure how to write integration tests, acceptance tests, kind of some of the higher level tests, by all means, that's perfectly fine. But at least understanding how to write a unit test in whatever your company's tech stack is, definitely I kind of consider that to be a core competency, something that I think every dev should be able to do. Or at least have exposure to, so that when you get thrown into a tech stack that you're not quite as familiar with, you at least have an idea of what to look for. All right. Well, as always, thank you all so much. Really enjoy having you all here. Thank you so much for stopping by the lab. We will be back on Friday, same time, 4:30, and at some point I will consider doing an AMA stream just as an additional, but we'll figure out what day and what time works best for everybody to do so. Thanks for the stream and answering that many questions. I learned a lot of stuff, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, Doll. Thank you, 715. Thank you, everybody. And of course, thank you to Sorcery for being our wonderful lurking mod. You are incredible, and I appreciate you dearly. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much, and take care. Bye, everyone.